For centuries, the West has clung to a comfortable origin story. We call it the Greek miracle, the idea that logic, democracy, and classical art simply erupted, perfectly formed out of ancient Greece. To the ancient Greeks themselves, there was a strict divide. They had logos, scientific law and truth, and they had mythos, storytelling. Philosophers like Plato dismissed mythos as a collection of unreliable, empty fairy tales. Treating these stories as mere fiction misses their actual utility. Mythology was the social engine of the ancient world. It was a highly adaptable tool used to forge alliances, justify borders, and continuously shift the boundaries of cultural identity. Think of it like a palimpsest. Before cheap paper, scribes would take an old manuscript, scrape away the ink, and write something new on top. But the old text never completely vanished. It always bled through the surface. The familiar Greek pantheon, the Olympians we all recognize, is exactly that, a superficial top layer of ink. To read the original text of Mediterranean identity, we have to look past the Greek peninsula, cross the Aegean Sea, and dig into the deep, ancient bedrock of Anatolia, modern-day Turkey. Our cultural history lives in the messy, contested, and continuously overwritten layers of Eastern mythology, rather than in any single pristine ruin. Along Anatolia's sun-drenched coast, monuments are carved directly into cliff faces. These shores are the true birthplace of deities we associate with Mount Olympus. Take Apollo. Long before he was drafted into the Greek pantheon, he was an Anatolian god of light and art, deeply rooted in the traditions of Lycia. Beneath him sits Kybele, the ancient great mother of the earth. Flanked by lions, she represents the region's foundational cultural DNA, predating the familiar classical gods by millennia. The fragmented Greek city-states didn't invent these figures. Instead, they adopted regional Anatolian deities and adapted their stories to unify rival populations under a shared banner. Homer is the prime example of this political remixing. The author of the ultimate Greek epic was likely an Ionian from the Anatolian coast, and his writing reveals deep sympathies for the city of Troy. But Homer's patrons were the victorious Greeks. To satisfy the rulers who funded his craft, the myth had to be rewritten to favor the conquerors, elevating the Achaeans while masking his underlying respect for the Trojan hero Hector. This fluidity made mythology humanity's first open-source code. Because poets were free to adjust the lineage of the gods to suit their audience, these stories became diplomatic tools, scripts that could be edited to forge new alliances or erase old borders. Centuries later, the Roman Empire faced a similar branding problem. As they expanded across the Mediterranean, they needed a heroic pedigree to justify their absolute authority over diverse cultures. Emperor Augustus commissioned the poet Virgil to write the Aeneid. Virgil deliberately reversed Homer's bias, reprogramming the ancient narrative so that the defeated Trojans, the Anatolians, became the heroic founders of Rome. Rome went beyond literature, solving a military crisis by literally importing the sacred stone of Kybele from Anatolia to Italy. This was a calculated geopolitical maneuver. By claiming the deepest religious symbol of the East and installing her in the capital, Rome built a cultural bridge across their expanding territories. Rome conquered with the sword, but they governed with the story. By integrating Anatolian origins into their own history, they turned the gods of the conquered into the ancestors of the capital, effectively overwriting the deep mythological operating system of the Mediterranean. To see the final cultural shift, we return to Anatolia, specifically to the ancient metropolis of Ephesus. The Greeks called the city's patron deity Artemis, often described as a virgin huntress. But beneath that label stands a towering, multi-breasted Anatolian mother of nature, governing the fertility of the earth. This specific identity faced an existential threat when the Roman Empire collapsed. As Christianity became absolute law, the old pagan temples were dismantled and their worship strictly outlawed. Yet the core belief adapted through a process called cultural transposition. The people of Ephesus seamlessly transferred the maternal, protective attributes of their great nature goddess to the figure of the Virgin Mary. The proof lies in the geography itself. A deeply held local tradition maintains that Mary spent her final days residing right here, in the hills above Ephesus. The religious label shifted, and the empire changed hands. But the foundational Anatolian identity of a protective mother goddess survived the transition completely intact. The true architecture of the Mediterranean lies in this unbreakable palimpsest, a history defined by human resilience, where ancient identities morph and adapt to survive whatever the future tries to write over them.